Hey everyone, Timothy here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Champions, the super role-playing game. This is the 4th edition of the game that I'm talking about here. It's by Hero Games. Basically what we're going to do is this is what the character sheet looks like. You have your name, the player's name, your stats. It's a little hard to see here. I wonder if I can zoom that in a little bit here. Yes, I can. One more. Okay, so it's not very clear for you, but that says strength, dexterity, constitution, body, intelligence, ego, presence, and comeliness. These are derived attributes that are afterwards are physical defense, energy defense, speed, recovery, endurance, and stun. What you have here is the base. This is what the stat starts at. And then the cost here is how many character points it costs to increase the stat or decrease the stat. So like say you wanted a character who's kind of weak and have a strength of 5 instead of a strength of 10, that's a times 1. You can't see it very well, but that's a times 1, that's a times 3. These two are times 2, times 1, times 2, times 1. This is times 1/2. And then these ones here you can also increase. This one is your strength divided by 5 normally, and then it's point for point after that. This one's your constitution divided by 5, and then again point for point. Your speed is 10 plus your dexterity divided by 3, I believe. No, that's wrong. That's 1 plus your dexterity divided by 2. Excuse me. 2? No, divided by 3. I'm pretty sure it's 3. Let me see if I can scoot that in and get a better look. Nope, I can't. It's just too far gone. I'll have to look at my own character sheet. It's either divided by 2 or divided by 3. Basically, a dex of 10 gets you a speed of 2. So let's see, that'd be 3. It'd be 9 divided by 3 is 3. Plus 1 would be 4. So no, it's dex divided by 2. Oh no, it's actually 1 plus... Maybe it's dex divided by 10. Because 1 plus 1 would be 2. It's probably dex divided by 10. It's been a while since I played. Sorry. Anyway, your recovery is kind of your PD and your ED added together. It's strength divided by 5 plus constitution divided by 5. Your endurance is double what your constitution score is. So if you have a constitution 10, you'll have an endurance of 20. And your stun is your body, this attribute, plus your strength divided by 2, plus your constitution divided by 2. I'll get to kind of how they work here in a minute. Then, of course, your characteristic rolls. This is like, for doing random stuff. It's always going to be 9 plus your characteristic divided by 5. Over here you have run, which you start with, I believe, 3 inches. And then your swim starts with 2 inches. And then your jump is based off your strength. So here you have disadvantages. Disadvantages get you more points. Here you can put your skills, your talents, your perks, or your powers. We'll get to those in a minute. Base OCV is your dexterity divided by 3. Your base DCV is dexterity divided by 3. Then there's other adjustments you can put in there based off skills, powers, whatever. These are combat maneuvers. I'm not going to go through all of them. We'll get to those in a different section. Range determines difficulty to hit. Then, of course, these are just kind of like what your dex is, your speed is. ECV is ego combat value. That's kind of like how they handle mental powers. And then this here, where it says phases, this is kind of your initiative for how often your character goes. Your round is a 12-second round, and you get kind of a certain amount of time in that 12-second round. So remember where I was talking about, say, a speed of 2? You would act out, it means you get to go 2 times in this 12 rounds, or this 12 seconds. So you go on 6 and 12. That'd be how often you go. Whereas if you're a guy who has a speed of 12, you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You'll be on your 6th time by the other guys on this first. So that's kind of how that works. PD, and then here it has RPD, which is resistant physical defense. We'll get to that in a moment. Same thing with ED, and your end, your stun, and your body. Your endurance is kind of like your energy. Your stun is kind of like SDC, I guess, like if you go with Palladium books. And that when your stun gets to 0, you're knocked out. You're not dead or anything, you're just knocked out. But when your body goes to 0, that's when, you know, things are pretty bad. So anyway, this is just kind of a generic look. Your experience is down there. This kind of your disadvantage totals, and that's kind of how that works. So we're going to kind of move down here a minute. And there's different types of campaigns. Let's see if I can find it here. Here we go. So basically the type of campaign the GM is running is going to determine how many points you get to make your character. So let's just say it was just showing heroic versus superheroic. So hero characters get 75 points. They can get 75 points from disadvantages, which is 150. The max point from any one disadvantage category is 25 points. This way you can't take like a bunch of disadvantages from the same place over and over. I'll kind of show you that when we get to disadvantages. And then your total is 125. 150 plus 25. What? That's not right. 75, 150. Yeah, 150 is your total. That's wrong. So that's supposed to be 150, not 125. See here, if you have a standard superhero campaign, 100 base with 150, you'll get your 250. And that, again, that's the maximum you can spend in one disadvantage category. Again, we'll get to that in a minute. So let's come down here to where the stats are. So here is a much clearer showing of what the stats do. Or I mean, what their costs are. So your strength basically, your strength factors into like when you're punching things, how much damage your punch does. Your dexterity, that determines your OCV and your DCV. And you know, strength and dex, all these stats will help with skills of some kind, except for a couple of them. Constitution and body are two attributes that don't factor into skills really, but they do factor into your health and your energy defense. Your constitution, you know, that determines how much energy you have, because it's your constitution times 2. Your body determines how much of a beating you can take. Your strength and your constitution together kind of help determine how much punishment you can resist in what they call non-killing combat. Intelligence, this is kind of what this kind of helps you for certain skills. Ego, this is part of your mental attacks. The ECV, your ego combat value, this determines that. It's basically the dexterity of mental attacks. Presence is interesting. It's kind of like the charisma in the game. It allows you to intimidate people or persuade people. Comeliness is just an extra little kind of flavor modifier. It can still help and have uses, but as you can see, it's very cheap. Your figured attributes, physical defense, this is determined by your strength, divided by 5, I believe, and it costs a point per. And then energy defense, again, con by 5. Speed is, 10 points per. And your base is a 2, so 10 divided by 10 is 1, plus 1 is 2. So it is divided by 10. Your recovery determines how fast you can recover your endurance, your body, your stun. We'll get to that in a bit. Endurance, again, is how much energy you have. Stun is how much before you get knocked out. And here's the formulas how to figure out these ones here. And over here is your movement. You start with, you start with 6 inches of running, not 2. And you can get up to a 10. Your 2 inches of swimming, which is 1 point up to a 5. These maximum values are what normal humans can achieve. Okay? Now, if you're some super monster hero or whatever from some other alien galaxy, you're not limited by this. There's a drawback called normal characteristic maxima. That is what sets those there. And if you take the age category, those are even lower. So, just thought I'd warn you there. Now, this kind of gives you a little, what they do. I'll just kind of go over it real slowly for you. You can just kind of pause the video if you want, as you see fit. Speed and recovery. Up here we have endurance and stun. We have our movement. Alright, so skills. Everyone gets a skill. And for most skills, this is kind of the formula. We'll see that here in a minute. Skill versus skill, complementary skills. So everyone gets what's called everyman skill list. And you see here, let's just say your GM is running a Viking fantasy. Everyone would start with these skills with what's called an 8 or less roll. What is an 8 or less roll? So in order to determine success in this game, you roll 3 6-sided dice. And depending on the difficulty the GM determines, you have to roll that or less. So let's just say your character has a 8 or less skill in boat building, because you're Viking. So basically, okay, I'm going to build a boat. Okay, when you're done, you roll your 3d6 and you have to have an 8 or less on 3d6. So obviously, the higher this can be, the better. Can you cap at 18 or less? The answer is no. There is no cap. You can make it a 40 or less roll if you're willing to spend the points on the skill that bad. Because yes, your GM can put minuses on things. There's, as you can see, you have all this going up right here. Basically, if you're doing something that's extremely difficult, he can put a -5 on there. So yeah, there's that. And this is your time chart here. And that'll become a little more important later. So here are your skills. You have acrobatics, acting, animal handler, break fall, bribery. I'm just kind of let you take a look at them here. This determines what the base skill roll is when you buy it. This first one before the slash is how much to buy it initially. So if you wanted acrobatics, it costs you 3 character points to buy it. And then this 2, it'll cost you another 2 to go from, instead of a 9 plus dex divided by 5. So let's just say your dex is still a 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2, plus 9 is 11 or less roll. So let's just say you want your acrobatics to be higher than that. So every 2 character points you spend, so let's just say you want it to be 1 better, so you spent 5, 3 to get it, and 2 to increase the roll by 1. So then you'd have a 12 or less roll instead of a 10 or less roll. Or 11 or less roll. Someone can't do math today. But that's kind of how that works. These general skills always have a default 11 or less roll. And again, this one costs 3 to pick up for an 11 or less roll, and the same 2 points to increase it. Combat skill levels are handled differently, and I'll get to that section in a second. Familiarity skills, this is always an 8 or less roll. Okay, this is like, oh yeah, I heard something about this and you can do it. Obviously, it doesn't cost anything to pick up a familiarity skill, and you cannot increase them, ever. So, rule of advice, never pick them. Okay? Languages, again, there's no roll for languages. You either can have it or you don't. But you see there's a 1/1 here. So, basically, with 4 points, you can read, write, and speak a language fluently with 4 points in that language. That's why you have a 1 to pick up the language and a 1 to improve your ability to speak that language, as well as read and write. Let's see. Professional skills are dirt cheap. They're 2 points, and it only costs 1 to improve. Same thing with sciences. So transport familiarity is just familiarity with vehicles. Weapon familiarity is just familiarity with weapons. Again, it's 8 or less roll. It doesn't matter. So never take these if you don't have to. Sometimes you get stuck with them. We'll get to that in a bit. So we're going to move down here to our combat skill levels in a sec here. Here we are. So a combat skill level is something that you can use to improve your abilities in combat. So what do we mean by that? So let's come down to this chart here. So let's just say you spend 2 points on a combat skill level. It says +1 OCB with any single attack. Now that might be with a specific maneuver, say like a punch. So let's just say you're playing One Punch Man over here, and you decide, well, I'm gonna put all my, I'm gonna buy 20 combat skill levels for 40 points, and I'm gonna put it all into my punch because I never want to miss. So basically, your OCB now becomes your dex divided by 3. So say you still have a dex of 10. So that's an OCB of 3. Say you're fighting a guy who has a DCB of 10. Okay, so basically, the way it works is you roll 3d6, okay, and you add your OCB, you subtract your OCB from the roll and add his DCB. So say you roll an 11 on your 3d6. 11 minus your initial 3 plus his 10 makes it 23 or less. 23? No, yours makes it easier to hit. So you add your 2. So 11 plus 2 would be 13, minus his 10 means you need a 3 or less to hit this guy on 3d6. Well, that's going to be a little tough, isn't it? Not impossible, but tough. Now, let's just say you have these 20 skill levels here, right? So now it becomes 11 plus your 3, plus your initial 2, plus your OCV of 3, which makes 14, plus 20 makes 34, minus his 10 makes 24. Oh, hey, you can't miss him. So now you're hitting him all the time. Hitting him and hurting him are two different things, though. Or you could do it with any 3 maneuvers for a little bit more, or any hand-to-hand combat, or any ranged combat, or any related groups. Or you can just do it 8 points with any kind of combat. So really it kind of depends on you on how much you want to spend, and how much you're willing to, how good you want to be all around. So that's really something you'll have to do. You'll have to decide. Also down here on, this kind of gives an example of languages if you're curious. Over here, we're going to go to combat maneuvers. Now, you couldn't see this very well on the character sheet, but this is what was there, some of it. So, defensive strike, it'll cost 5 points to have it. When you're using it, you get plus 1 OCV to hit, and a plus 3 DCV to yourself for using it. And then it does strength strike. So your strength typically is 1d6 for every 5 points of strength. So strength of 10 does a 2d6 punch. Or in this case, a 2d6 defensive strike. Okay? Strength plus 2d6 means you do 4d6 with the strength of 10. 6d6 with the strength of 10. Block abort means basically you block an incoming attack, but you abort any actions you were going to take that round. Dodge affects all attacks, and abort, this one affects all attacks directed at you, but it also aborts any actions you were going to take. Okay? So a block gives you a plus 2 to your OCV and a plus 2 to your DCV, because a block is a roll against the person trying to hit you. A dodge, however, you don't roll anything. You just add 5 to your DCV. Martial throw, it says strength plus V/5 opponent falls. What's V/5? Well, let's see if we can find it. Maybe it was before this. Nope. Somewhere in here. I know it's on the character sheet, but I can't. It's velocity divided by 5, but I can't remember. Maybe it's down here. No, it's not down here. Shoot. Or maybe we'll find it in the combat section. It might be there. So there's other things you can do too. See this plus 1 DC for all M arts attacks? So basically, let's just say you take defensive strike. Right? You say, well, I'd like to do more damage. And sure, you could spend a point on, 5 points of strength to get an extra D6. Or here you can spend 4 points to get 1 extra D6. This winds up being cheaper to get more damage out of an attack, but it's for this specific attack. It's not for all attacks, where strength would apply to all of your attacks. So really it kind of depends, again, where you want your points to go. And then here, these are called package deals. So say you want to have classic comic book fighting, you spend 4 plus 5 is 9, plus 4 is 13, plus 3 is 16, plus 4 is 20. You'll spend 20 points to get all of these maneuvers, and you get breakfall and familiarity with common melee weapons. This will be your 9 plus characteristic divided by 5, and because it's familiarity, it's 8 or less. Remember, I said sometimes you'll get stuck with them. Now, let's see if it's cheaper to go this route than the other way. So, martial strike, that costs 4, just like it does here. So these look like they're the same, but breakfall is 3 points, and familiarity is 1 point. So you really save 4 points going this route here. So it is cheaper to go package deals, though you're not always going to get what you want. So, and this just gives more examples. These are more skills. So just as there's combat skill levels, you have range skill levels. For those of you who want to play snipers or energy blasters, this offsets your range penalties. And then you also have skill levels. These are for your mostly non-combat stuff. However, for 10 points, you can get an overall level that can be used as a combat skill level. Or you can just spend 8 points and get a combat skill level that affects all combat. So this isn't very efficient going that route if you want combat. So now that we've looked at skills, we have skill enhancers. So let's just say you want a jack of all trades. The character picks up trades easily. He learns new professional skills at -1 character point to cost. So remember it said 2/1. So now it's 1/1 instead. But that's for professional skills only. It doesn't affect languages or knowledges or sciences or anything else. Alright, so now we're going to look at the perks. Perks, you can get contacts, favors, followers, fringe benefits, money, vehicles, and bases. Followers, vehicles, and bases all work kind of the same. You spend 1 point and you get 5 character points to build. So if you spend, say, 50 points on, say, a pet like an animal, say you want a loyal dog follower, that dog is 50 times 5, 250 points. Your pet could be more powerful than you, which the game does limit you. Your pet can't have more points than you. So if you're built on 200 points, your pet can't be built on more than 200 points, which will limit how much you can spend on it. So same thing with vehicles and bases. We'll kind of cover those here in a second. A pet is built just like a character. It has attributes just like you do. Vehicles and bases are a little bit different. So let's come down here. Contact is, you might know a senator or whatever. Your GM kind of helps you determine how much you're going to spend. Fringe benefits, so like say you want the right to marry, you can perform the marriage, cost your point, This is just these are more for flavor than any real thing. Like the money system really doesn't matter in this game. If you want to buy equipment, it's mostly through character points for specialized equipment. You can buy regular chump store-bought stuff, but it sucks. So vehicles, bases, like I said, just like pets, but slightly different. Talents are extra, more flavor things. They are useful depending on what you want. For example, combat sense here. This 3-2, basically for 3 points you pick up combat sense. It gives you a, I don't remember the stat, I think it's perception of some kind, which is based off your intelligence, which is 9 plus charisma, characteristic divided by 5. A sense that someone might sneak attack you or attack you from behind. It's actually pretty cool. So I usually use danger sense and combat sense. Find weakness isn't bad, but they're more for flavor than anything else. So now we get to the powers. Powers are a little interesting because they're not as cut and dry as other games, because you can really mess with people. So let's take a look at this power drain, for example. So basically, you go up to a guy. If you're familiar with a character like Parasite from DC, or maybe Rogue from the X-Men, that's kind of what this power does. Basically, you can pick what you're going to drain, but you pick that when you buy the power. So we'll come down to drain here in a minute. So let's come down and see what drain says. Drain. No. Here we are, drain. The character with this adjustment power can temporarily lower the value of an opponent's characteristic or power. 1d6 of drain costs 10 character points. So if you want 5d6, that's 50 points. To use drain, the character must make a successful attack roll. If successful, total the drain dice and subtract the target's power defense, if any. The total remaining is the number of active points lost from the affected power or characteristic. So, let's just say you bought 50 points. That's 5d6. You roll your 5d6. Let's just say you get 15. Now, power defense is an actual power. If they don't have any power defense, that's their only resistance. There's no other resistance but that. But we'll get to that in a second because that can be complicated too. So they give an example here. Sapper purchases 30 points of drain. That's 3d6. Of an opponent's energy blast. That's all he can drain is an opponent's energy blast. This lets her drain 3d6 active points from energy blast. So let's go down to energy blast for a second and see what that costs. 5 character points for 1d6 energy blast. Okay? So let's go back now to drain. So this lets her drain 3d6 active points. The points drained will return to the victim at a rate of 5 active points per turn. That's 12 seconds. Not each phase of the 12 seconds. That's per the 12 seconds. Wait, actually it might be longer than that. So basically, not satisfied with this, Sapper moves the recovery rate down 6 levels. You remember that time chart I showed you? So maybe from instead of 12 seconds you get 5, you might have to wait 5 hours to get 5, as an example. So basically, now this is a 1.5 advantage. We'll get to that chart in a minute. So basically 30 times 1.5, 1 plus 1.5, makes that power, instead of 30 points, it now makes it 75 points. And the drained EB will return at a rate of 5 active points. Oh, per month. They were nice enough to do that. So you see here, 10 character points for 1d6 of drain. Drain points return 5 active points per turn. Return rate can be moved down the time chart for a quarter advantage. So each tick down is a quarter advantage. So if you move it down 4 ticks, 4 quarters is 1. So let's come down here to energy blast. Remember I said we said she got rolled a 15. So 15 divided by 5 is 3d6. If that opponent had a 10d6 energy blast, now they're shooting at a 7d6 energy blast. And if it's that power that's moved down to a month, then it's going to be 7d6 for a month unless they get drained again. So as you can see, this power can be nasty. Now what if they have power defense? If they have power defense at 10, so 15 minus 10 is 5. That's 1d6 off instead of 3d6. So now you kind of understand how that works. So now we're going to kind of move down. There's other powers too. We're not going to get too crazy with it. So here are some, let's see, these are power limitations. We want advantages. Advantages. So here's the chart on advantages. So you see here the 30. And you see here the 1 1/4, or actually 1 1/2. You see the 75. That's where they got that number. Okay. So 1 1/2 of 30 is the 75. See, 1 1/2 total multiplier. You move over here to where the 30. That's the active points. So that's 75 points that it costs you to buy that power like that. So that's, you can see your powers get really expensive fast. So here's something a friend of mine did. And it's, I don't know how, I mean, it's legit game-wise. So he bought a character with a speed of 12, but he put a limitation on it where it only happens on segment 12 at the very end, and he put auto fire 5 on it. So let's take a look at auto fire. An offensive power with auto fire can hit a target more than once in a single phase. That means he gets more than one action in that single phase. Access also allows the character to perform certain combat maneuvers that cannot be done with normal attacks. To use a power with auto fire, the character chooses how many times he would like to fire the power up to a maximum of 5 shots. So he would get 5 actions on 12. And he'd still get 1 action on every, depending on how you do it. Or maybe he did it 5 actions on every segment. Maybe that's how he did it. So this made him really, really nasty. But you burned through your endurance really fast, unless you bought your power with no endurance cost. Some powers you can do that, some you can't. So, the basic auto fire is a 1/2 advantage. This enables the character to fire a maximum of 5 shots. This maximum can be doubled for each additional plus 1/2. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. You see how bad this power can really hurt people. This advantage. So there are a lot of different ones. I don't really want to go through because we'll be here for hours. This video is already pretty long. So we're going to go to limitations now. And just as a 30-point power with a 1.5 is 75, and 1.5 at 30 only costs 12 if you're putting limitations on it. Well, what kind of limitations? Well, what if your power, let's see, which one's left, is always on? So this is one Rogue would have, right? Her power absorption is always on. So that means, okay, a power that can never turn off is worth a 1/2 limitation. The power must be brought to 0 and persistent with this power advantage. So let's go up here, which I believe no end. No, that's maybe it's reduced end. That must be what it is. Yep, reduced endurance. Reducing end cost to 0 is a 1/2 power advantage, and then persistent. Penetrating, can't find persistent. Is that under here? Persistent is another 1/2. So it's a +1 modifier for her drain. So let's just say Rogue has 30 points. With a +1 is 60, but we're not done yet. Because remember, it's a -1/2, so that +1 gets knocked down to a 1/2. So now her drain of 30 points, which is 3d6, is now 45 points instead of 60 points. Okay, do you guys understand? Advantages and limitations are cumulative in terms of chart costs. So if you wind up with more limitations than advantages, you get a negative on it. If you have more advantages than limitations, you'll wind up with, an increased cost. But this isn't where we end, because now we don't have just these. Let's get past there. Now we have drawbacks. Here we are. So drawbacks, there's a lot of those. Actually, we'll just go down to the one I was talking about earlier. Well, we'll go to age. Here's age right here. So this is your normal characteristic maxima. Excuse me. Normal characteristic maxima costs 20 points, and your character can never ever go above these attributes. Alright, because your character is a normal human. If your character is age 40, you have to buy normal characteristic maxima and age, and these are your new maximums. Which means once your character hits age 40, you can never go above these attributes. Well, what if I had a 20 here and then I hit 40? Then it goes to 15. Excuse me. So yeah, that's and there's lots of different drawbacks. Now, you might ask, well, I'm only seeing like the one thing there. How do you get like the multiple points in a thing? Okay. Let's just say you have a hero who has a dependent NPC. This would be like Mary Jane Watson or Aunt May, where Spider-Man has to go save them, or Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, the Superman has to save. They're always getting into trouble, and they're always there at the wrong time. And so, how helpless is your dependent non-player character? Most normal humans are considered normal. Idiots, incompetents. Now, it's not to say that they're dumb or anything. So like Aunt May might be an incompetent. She's very weak, she's very frail. She's more likely to get hurt than, say, Lois Lane, as an example. But you're not limited to just one dependent non-player character. You can have as many as you want. You can go above what it says your maximum is, you just don't get points for it. So, I think the hero was 50. No, the hero was 25, and the superhero standard was 50. So let's just say you're doing a superhero standard campaign. So you can take 50 points worth, you could take an Aunt May, which is 10, who shows up on a 14 or less. Remember that 3d6 roll? So whenever the GM rolls an encounter, decides there's something going to happen, he rolls 3d6 for those who have this drawback to see if their dependent non-player characters are involved in what's going on. So there's a bank robbery. Maybe Aunt May was at the bank when it happened. That's how that works. So now you have a complication in saving the day. So that's how that works. So yeah, you could maybe Aunt May and Mary Jane Watson were there. You know, you could have two there. So because maybe Aunt May shows up on 14 or less, but maybe Mary Jane only shows up 8 or less. And Mary Jane is a normal, so that's 5 plus 5 is 10 points for her. Aunt May is a 10 and a 14 or less, so that's 25 for Aunt May. 25 plus 10 is 35 points. You could still stick another, 25 points worth into that if you wanted to. You don't have to, but if you wanted to, right? So, psychological instabilities, there's lots of these. Code of chivalry, code against killing, honorable. You could just load up on these. These are easy ways to burn up. See, 20, 20, right there, you're past if you just go with those three. I mean, you can still have all three, but you're 10 points past your maximum. So, you still have the drawbacks, you just don't get all the points worth. You'll get 50 points out of the 60, that's an example. Reputation, rivalries, secret identities, public identities, being susceptible to attacks, being vulnerable to stuff, all kinds of stuff. These are package deals you can use for certain character types. For example, you want a package dwarf, here you go. They're not humans, so they can go above that 20, right? So, sample characters. This girl's like a space spy kind of a thing. Here's a character that's in Champions Online. She's actually in the game. There's a mission with her. If you're a hero, I think you have to beat her up. So yeah, she's let's take. She has psychological limitation code against killing. She won't. So basically, she's in a situation where she's going to be forced to try and kill someone. She has to roll against this. Common means 11 or less. So there's an 11 or less roll that she won't kill you if she's fighting you. Psychological limitation, fear that the amulet will be stolen. Her powers come from this amulet. It's a focus. So like elemental control, sonic powers, all OIF stands for obvious inaccessible focus. That's actually a limitation for powers. So, and control is kind of, how I said package deals for skills? There's package deals for powers too. I didn't really cover them because we got a lot in the game here, so we're already at 40 minutes, so I assume most of you are tuned out by now, but you diehards, you stick with it. Alright, so anyway, so you can see kind of what her drawbacks are, and you can count up 20, 35, 50, 60, 80, 100, 130, 150 points. And you see here, her characteristics are 127, her powers are 123 for 250, which is 100 advantages plus 150. So she's on the, she looks like she's on the hero standard, which is 100, 150. So yeah, and then of course you have, average, senior citizens. This might be Aunt May, right here. 5'8", 5'8", 13, 13, 10, 10, So, you don't have to go with these. You can make your own, or the GM can make them for you. Combat, so let's see. Let's come down here to what I want to show you. So, here's the speed chart I was talking about. So, if your character speed is a 1, you go on segment 12. If your character speed is a 12, the only one you don't go on is 1. Okay? So, this makes it pretty fair. So, I have a character with a speed of 6. Called the Man's Main Man. So he goes on every even one. 2, 4, 6. Oh, I guess he goes 6, 7, 8. What? That's not right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this chart's wrong. It's right in my book. It's wrong on the PDF. So basically, he would go on 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. This chart's wrong. Don't go by this chart. This chart's wrong. Don't go by it. Okay? So here's that time chart we were talking about. So you remember it said 1 turn? That's 12. That's the post 12 segments. So 6 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 1 month. Well, actually, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, but I don't know where they're getting a month from. I'm getting a week. So anyway, you see how that works. You're moved by, you're moved through. These are velocity moves. Maybe it'll give me that velocity thing I want here. Here we go, velocity. So you remember that V/5? Okay, so velocity per phase times speed in inches per turn. So let's see. So your velocity, this gives you your base. Things that are moving faster are harder to hit. So if you're moving 1 to 32 inches, 1 inch in this game is 2 meters. That's 1 hex. That's 1 inch. Okay, just so we are clear on that. So if you're moving, pretty fast. So let's just say you have movement power and you're moving at 30 hexes in one thing, that's still there. You get an extra DCV. So if your DCV is normally 3, you have a 4. As long as you're moving, you got a 4. Okay. Now, basically, let's just say you do that little judo flip or whatever, the martial throw, and it says velocity divided strength plus velocity divided by 5. 2d6. You're doing 30, right? So let me see if I can see. It's not showing me. Darn it. Well, yeah. So velocity divided by 5. 30 inches divided by 5 is 6. So you'd be doing strength 2d6 plus 6 points of damage. That's how that works. Pretty sure that's how that works. Like I said, it's been a long time. This kind of tells you how the game runs. So basically, determine the attacker's OCV. That's your OCV to hit. Determine the defenders. Roll 3d6. The roll required is 11 plus your OCV minus the defender's DCV. I was wrong. My apologies. I'm a big enough man to admit I'm wrong. So in that previous example, if you had an OCV of 3 and he had a DCV of 10, 11 plus 3 is 14, minus 10 is 4. So you would need a 4 or less. Whereas if you had that plus 20, you're still going to automatically hit. Pay the end cost for the attack. Now this is going to depend on your power level. If you're on, I think, heroic, end cost, I want to say, it mentions it in, maybe it mentions it right here. I think it mentioned it's in where you're doing it. I know in superhero high powered, it's 5 active points, I think, is 10 endurance. So if you have a strength of, say, 20, so that's, now you started with a 10, so you only have 10 active points in. So that's 10 active points. So that'll cost you 5 stamina to punch a guy with a 20 strength. Okay, you understand? Whereas if you didn't add any strength, it doesn't cost you anything. I mean, every action always costs 1. So you're always going to spend 1 end no matter what you're doing, unless you're like what they do call taking a recovery. So basically when it's your phase to go, so in my previous example, he goes on every even phase. So say on phase 4 or 5 he takes some damage and he wants to recover. So he says, I'm going to take a recovery. So basically that's at that recovery attribute. So say he has a recovery of 4. He gains 4 endurance back on that recovery check. Because he's not doing anything, he's taking an E. He's taking a breath. He's taking a rest. So that's how that works. So yeah, that's how you determine if you hit. If the attack roll is missed, yeah, blah blah blah. If the attacker hits, determine damage. We already kind of talked about that. Hit location is an optional chart. Knockback may be happening. If you're wounded, you make ego roll. It's kind of like morale. A lot of that's optional stuff, but you can add it in for flavor. Combat value, that's kind of like your OCV, DCV, and that's where your combat skill levels are going to come in and make modifiers. And that's kind of how combat runs in the system. So, who are the champions? Actually, I don't think they're in this book, are they? Nope, they're in the champion source book. I have that book, but I don't have that here for you, so I apologize for that. Let's bring this out a little bit. So here's our character sheet. Again, it's not the same as the one in the front, but it gives you a pretty good idea. This one, on the other one, it just kind of has where that guy is standing right there. So, all right. So I hope you enjoyed the video. We're at 47 minutes, so we're gonna end it here. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like the game, you can find it on Walmart, probably on Amazon, and I think Noble Knight Games also still does it. Remember, it's Champions 4th edition. They have other editions. I think they're up to 6 editions. Champions Online, the game that came out in 2009. I believe that one's based off the 6th edition, but don't quote me on that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you next time.